Okay, so the third module, receivable management. I will just give you overview of what it is, how it works. We discussed it earlier also, but we will just go through it once at a glance. The term receivable is nothing but the debt that is owned by a customer arising out of sale of goods. So it is not loan taken from you. If any customer has purchased goods from you or taken some services from you and has promised you to pay later instead of paying immediately, we call such customers as receivables, and they own money to us. They owe money to us because we have rendered our services or we have sold goods to them. So they will be paying us later. Such customers are called as debtors, or we also call it as receivable management, or we also call them as credit. We call it as credit management. So when we are talking of receivable management, we'll basically understand how to manage these customers, get our money as soon as possible, and how to increase our sales. So how that balancing has to be done. So these are the costs associated with credit management. First is collection cost, the administrative, it is also called as the administrative cost. The efforts that you put in collecting, you may give follow-up calls, you may send reminder letters, you may send legal notices. So all that requires administrative cost. So when you put that much money and efforts, we call it as collection cost. The next is the capital cost. When you sell goods on credit basis, your money gets stuck and you will not receive your own money early. You have to wait for 3 months or 6 months to receive your own money back. In that case, what happens is we take loan and we run our business because our money is stuck with the customers and we have given them time to pay. So when we take loan, we basically have to pay interest on that. So that is capital cost. Just because my capital is stuck somewhere, I borrow additional capital and I have to pay cost on that, interest on that. That is capital cost. If you remember, when we were doing the sums, I was taking something called as cost of additional investment. So this is that cost of additional investment, the capital cost. We used to do K into delta I. So whatever additional I'm borrowing into what is the cost, that is your capital cost. The next is the delinquency cost. Now there is a very small difference between the delinquency cost and the default cost. So you need to remember it well. In case of delinquency cost, the delinquency cost is trying to say that the customer has failed to pay on the due date. It doesn't mean that the customer will not pay. He has failed to pay on the due date. So if you had given him the due date as 2nd December today and the customer doesn't pay, so we call it as delinquency cost, because today I might have promised my worker to pay his salary. If the customer doesn't pay me money, I will not be able to pay him salary. So I am losing on it. So it is delinquency cost. Customer has not told he will not pay. He has just not paid on the due date. You need to do follow up and he may pay later. So he is not bad debt. He has not defaulted, but he has not paid on the due date. That is delinquency cost. Whereas default cost is when the customer will not pay some overdues which will not be recovered. He's been declared as bad debt and he's been declared as insolvent. He doesn't has any money and he's told you, I'll not be able to pay you money. In that case, we call it as default cost. The next is the credit policy. The credit policy of a company can be regarded as a kind of trade-off between how to increase the sales, credit sales, leading to increased profit, as well as manage the cost of giving that receivables. There can be many incidences of loss, bad debts, there can be problems. We'll have to put lots of money in collection effort. So you need to prepare a policy or terms and conditions, rules and regulations, which will help you to maintain a balance between your sales, the profit that you're getting, and the losses or the cost that you're going to incur, so that your profit and cost should equalize each other. You should not make more losses, then that policy is not a good policy. So we have to prepare such credit policy. Whenever a company prepares credit policy, it basically keeps into account four things. Four things are to be kept into mind whenever you plan for a credit policy. The first one is credit standard. So to which customer I am giving credit. So you segregate your customers depending on their performance. So you very good performing customer who pays on time, you may give him A grade. then a little less B grade, C grade and D grade. So you can grade your customers. So that's the standards that you have set. So if you have to go into A category, you have to satisfy these standards. Only then I'll call you a A grade customer. So you have to divide your customers into different standards so that you can decide how much loan you will give to each kind of customer. Next is the credit period. In this case, how much time you're going to give credit for has to be decided. So credit can be given for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and so on. So if I'm already giving 2 months credit, now I'm planning to give 3 months credit. Should I give or no? Such decisions basically we take in credit period, and we have also done sums on that. The next is the cash discount. In this case, you will basically be giving discount to customers so that they pay early. So it is kind of a motivation for the customers to make the payment early. You tell them that if you give it within so and so day, I'll give you so much discount, so that much money you can save. So they will, if they have money, they will oblige for it and they will take the discount of it. And the last thing that you have to keep in mind is collection efforts. How much time, energy, and money you will have to spend while collecting your own money back from the customers. You have to keep that also in mind before preparing the credit policy. So on these four, we have also done problems, and all the four are very, very important for any credit policy that is being made by any organization. Okay, so each one of it is explained in detail, which I've already explained you. You can go through it later. So there is something called as liberal credit term and stiff credit term. Both have its own advantages and disadvantages. If you have a liberal credit policy, means you're very lenient, you allow anything and everything. In that case, your sales will increase. You will have, but the bad debt loss will be very high in that case. So that is another issue, or you can say drawback. Okay, so you'll have increased sales, but the problem will be that huge bad debt losses you may face. Your investment in receivables, you'll have large investment in receivables, higher cost of collection. So all these things are to be kept in mind when you're deciding on your credit policy. If it is too liberal, you will face bad debt loss. You'll have to invest lot of money in receivables. You'll have to bear the cost of collection. But the advantage is it will increase your sales. If you are a too strict or stiff credit standard, then you will depress your sales because your sales value will come down. People may not buy goods from you because you're not giving credit. Then this will reduce the incidence of bad debt loss. You'll have to invest very little as additional investment, and it will lower your collection cost also. So both have their advantages and disadvantages. You need to have a balance and decide which one will you follow. Okay, it is as good as if the class is taken by a strict teacher and a lenient teacher. If a strict teacher takes a class, all of you will attend with the fear, but you may not listen, you may not understand, and you may just sit. But if a lenient teacher is taking class, only interested people may attend, but they will attend with their own will and wish, and they will attend with the intention of learning new things. So the loss for a lenient teacher is the number of students attending may be very low, but the quality of explanation and students understanding will be high. But in case of a strict teacher, the number of students attending may be 100%. But the loss is they may not attend because they are willing to attend, but they will attend because they have fear of that particular person. Okay, so that's how it works, liberal and stiff credit standard. The next is credit period. In case of credit period, you have to decide the time for which you're going to give credit. Usually people give credit up to 60 days, or maximum it goes up to 90 days. And it starts from 15 days. So 15 days to 60 days is generally what it varies. And it can also be 0 days. You say cash and carry, you pay cash and take, we are not going to give you any credit. If you lengthen the credit period, most people will purchase from you, they will get attracted towards your company and they will buy more. But the problem is the bad debt losses will also be too high. Next is cash discount. Cash discount, as I told you, is nothing but a motivation for the customers to purchase from you. So if they are paying you early, you are going to give them certain portion of your profit as discount. With cash discount, you will incur the cost of discount, because you're giving discount, that much money you're not recovering, but your bad debt losses will come down, because most of the people would like to avail the discount and pay instead of becoming a bad debt for the company. Then collection efforts is same like strict and lenient. If it's a strict credit policy, the collection efforts would be very low. But if it is a lenient credit policy, people will take you for a ride and you will have to put more collection efforts. Next is credit evaluation. Now, if I have already given credit or I am planning to give credit, how do I evaluate to whom I should give credit? So there are the traditional technique says you have to see the 5 C's of credit before giving credit to any customer. The first one is the character. In the case of character, you're basically seeing whether that fellow is honest, he has some moral attributes, and he is buying goods from me with an intention to pay me money. So he should have some honor, dignity, certain obligation towards you. So you check the character of an individual. If that person is always a defaulter, he has cheated many people, then to such person nobody will give goods on credit. The next you see is capacity. In case of capacity, you will see his payment capacity. So you will check his financial position. What is his financial stability? Is he having cash flows with which he can pay me money? His operating cash inflows are more than his outflows. So he has profit and he has a capacity to pay. If a person who does nothing and has no job, has no money, or has no business, comes to you and tells you, give me goods on credit, I'll pay you later, you would basically check his capacity and say, you don't have the capacity to pay it. Reason being, the person is not earning anything or his financial thing is not strong. Next is capital. The financial reserve of the customer, if the customer has problem in meeting the credit obligation. So if a customer is not able to pay, you will check what is his capital. From his operating cash flows, if he is not able to pay, then can he sell his assets and pay me the money? So how many are his assets? What is his capital contribution to the company? You will check that as well. Because liquidity problem, if he faces, operating cash flows are low, at least he can go to his long-term assets, sell them, and you can recover money from them. The next is collateral. Collateral is nothing but security. What is he keeping it as security? Or who is the guarantor? So what security is offered against the goods that are taken on credit? You will try and understand that. The next is condition, the general economic condition that affects the customer. Now, for example, if during the COVID period, the better performing industries or companies were basically pharmaceutical and the grocery stores. So suppose you're giving goods on credit to some grocery store fellow, you will see that the economic conditions are favoring him. People will go and buy grocery things and he will sell the goods and I will get my money back. So you easily gave him credit. But suppose you are into construction business and your goods were asked to be given on credit, you would basically say that when the construction itself is not happening, and if I would give steel or maybe bricks or cement on credit, what is the guarantee that it will be paid back? So you need to also check the economic condition that is affecting that customer. If the economic condition is affecting adversely to him, you may not give credit to him. But if it is positively in favor of him, you will give credit to him. So traditional method spoke about these 5 techniques. These are very, very important. You need to remember them. You judge a customer on the basis of character, capacity, capital, collateral, and conditions. So the next one, that was traditional way of doing it. Now we will see what were the modern techniques that came into picture. The very first one that came into picture was numerical credit scoring. In case of numerical credit scoring, we rate the customer on a 5-point or a 7-point scale. So how are we going to rate the customer? How it is going to work? There's a step-by-step procedure that I have mentioned here. So first what you will have to do is you will have to identify the factors that are relevant for credit evaluation. Let us do this as an exercise in the class. So I just want to know from a few of you, whoever are active and will be able to answer. If you run a business and you are thinking to give credit to a particular customer, what are the factors that you will see in that particular customer before giving him credit? Anybody?
Ma'am, is capacity credit
Ma'am,
worthiness?
his income source.
Income. Okay. Any other factor?
Ma'am, capacity.
Credit worthiness.
Credit worthiness. Capacity and income are almost same, so I'll write income slash capacity. Credit worthiness. Then anything else? Only these two things you will see.
Grade of customer.
What you will see?
Ma'am, collateral.
I'm not able to hear you.
Ma'am, collateral, the security offered.
Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So let's continue. You said income, credit worthiness, then any other factor?
Character.
Capacity.
Capacity we have taken into account.
Ma'am, condition.
Condition. So the 7 C's is what we are repeating. Condition, okay.
Ma'am, collateral, security.
Security. Okay, so these are the factors that you would see in a customer before giving him loan. Is that fine? So first step is that identify factors relevant for credit evaluation. So you have identified that are relevant and you're going to use these particular factors for credit evaluation. The second, assign weights to these factors that reflect their relative importance. Now let's go to the second step. Out of all these, income, character, condition and security, for which factor you want to give more weightage?
Income, ma'am.
Income. Okay, so maybe we will give 50% weightage to income. Or okay, then second to which you want to give more weightage? Let's make it 40%. After income, what you will see?
Credit worthiness.
Anybody?
Ma'am, character.
Character. Okay, so maybe we give 20% weightage to character. Then or 20.
Credit worthiness, ma'am.
Credit worthiness. So I'll give 20% to credit worthiness. Next,
Then security, ma'am.
Security.
and 5% to condition. So totally, just see if the total is 1. Yes, the total comes to 1. So weightage wise, if I talk, 40% weightage you're giving to worthiness, 25% to character, 5% to condition, and 10% to security. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So we have done the second point also. Statistics, relevant factors, then we gave weightage to each depending on our importance and our understanding. Next is we rate the customers on the basis of various factors. So now suppose I have 3 customers, or maybe I have 2 customers. So I will rate them. I have customer A and customer B. So I feel I have to rate them on a 5-point or a 7-point scale. Let us take a 5-point scale. In that 5-point scale, I am saying 5 being the highly rated and 1 being the lowest rated. Okay. So if I give 5, that means that customer is really good. If I give 1 or 2, that means that customer is average or you have rated him very low. So in case of income, maybe I will rate customer A as 5. But his credit worthiness, I feel, should be neutral, rated as 3. His character, I feel, is 4. His condition is again 5. And security that he has given is very low or not acceptable. So I'm rating him 2. Let's do it the same way for customer B. I feel his income is not that good. So let's make it 3. His credit worthiness, because income is not good, it's again 3. His character is really good. We admire it. His condition, because the income is not good, it is very low, and the security that he has given is also good. So these are the points that I gave him. Okay, now what we have to do is we have to multiply the points with the weightage. So I multiply 5 points of A with 0.4. So because for me income gives 40% weightage. Okay, and we get the weighted score for both of them here. Anybody having the calculator? Can you do it for me faster?
Yes, ma'am.
Just do 5 into 0.4.
2, ma'am.
2.
Okay, so 2. Then 3 into 0.2.
0.6.
0.6.
6.
6. 4 into 0.25.
1.
5 into 0.05.
0.25.
0.25. And 2 into 0.1.
0.2.
0.2.
Now we add all these scores. So 2 plus 0.6. How much are we getting?
4.05.
4.05 is the score of customer A. Let's do it for customer B. Customer B income we are rated in 3. So 3 into 0.4.
1.2, ma'am.
1.2.
1.2. Okay. Then 3 into 0.2.
0.6.
0.6. Then 5 into 1.25.
1.25.
3 into 0.05.
0.15.
And last 4 into 0.1.
0.4.
0.4. Total one of you.
3.6.
3.6. Now look at the scores of both of them. The score of A is 4.05 and of B is 3.6. So which customer would you like to give credit?
Customer
Customer
A.
A.
Customer A, because his score is high. So this is numerical credit scoring. You go step by step in the procedure. You rate each customer on the basis of their performance on the factors that you have called as relevant. And then whichever customer gets the highest rating, you classify the customers according to their rating and decide on should I give credit to this person or no. So here it's given, see, for each factor, multiply the factor rating with the credit factor weight to get the factor score. So for each factor, you multiplied the rating with the weightage and you got the score for that particular factor. Then add all the factor scores to get the overall rating. So you added all the factor scores of A and you got an overall rating of 4.05 for A. Based on the rating index, classify the customers. So based on the rating index, I have decided to give credit to customer A. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
You need not by heart the process. If you have understood this and you remember this in exam in your own words also, you can write it. So first is to identify relevant factors. Then you give weightage to those factors depending on your importance. Then you rate the customers on a 5-point or a 7-point scale based on that factors. You multiply the weightage with the rating. You will get factor rating. You add all the factor ratings, you will get the total score of that customer. And whichever customer scores higher, you can give credit to that particular customer. So that is numerical credit scoring. This is more of a practical approach with numbers, and quantitatively you will understand which customer is performing better than the other. Whereas in case of traditional, it was all based on your thinking. You feel the character is good, you feel the capacity is good. Here, the same thing we have put in numbers to justify why we have selected customer A over customer B. So that was one method. The next method is discriminate analysis. In case of discriminate analysis, what we do is a firm can use more objective method of differentiating between the good and the bad customer. So this can be done by using one or two ratios. So you use one or two ratios and put them in a graph. So suppose I will take maybe net profit ratio on one end, and I will take quick ratio on other end. So what I am doing, I'm rating the customer on the basis of net profit and liquidity by using quick ratio. So I rate the customers on those, and then I differentiate between the good and the bad customers. Who have performed good in those ratios, I classify them as good and the others as bad. Okay, the following steps can be involved. First, arrange the paying good and non-paying bad customers by the magnitude of the ratios. So you calculate the ratios and arrange them on the graph. Then you select the cutoff point to divide number of misclassifications. The cutoff point is selected by visual inspection. The firm can consider granting credit to those customers who have ratios above the cutoff point. So this is one of the taken two ratios, EBITDA and operating cash flows, and a combination of these two could be plotted on a graph. A straight line in the graph should be separated to two groups. The line will tell you how much important, and this is how they have given that example also. You're giving 30 times weightage to EBITDA to sales ratio, and you're giving 16 times weightage to operating cash flow to sales ratio. That means if they perform good in this as compared to this. So whatever is their ratio, you multiply with 30 here, and whatever is this ratio, you multiply with 16 here. So you will get the Z score of that customer. That Z score, you can plot it on the graph. And which customer you want to adopt. Like for example, if EBITDA to sales ratio is 5, then you will do 30 into 5. And if operating cash flow to sales ratio is 7, you will do 16 into 7, and you will add both. You will get the Z value. That Z value is the value of that customer, which will be plotted into the graph. So I'll just show you how it will get plotted into the graph. I'm just making an attempt. Let's see if it works out well. Okay, so suppose I'm drawing a graph. Okay, and I'm plotting the customers on Z score. So, or here you can write that EBITDA ratio, whatever I told you, and here it can be operating cash flow ratio, and here are your customers on the graph. You plot them depending on their Z score. You've plotted the customers, and they're at different points. So I have a plot graph with different customers at different points. Now what I will do is, looking at these points, I will understand which is the line which is good or bad. So I am giving more importance to EBITDA ratio. So I want more customers in this range. So here is where I want most of my customers, and above this maybe I don't want. So looking at it, maybe I draw a line like this. So I say all the customers who are on this line or below this line are good. They will pay me. And all the customers who are above this line may not pay me because they are good at operating cash flow, but they are weak at EBITDA ratio. So more weightage I gave it to it. So looking at the graph, you need to draw that line which will discriminate between the good and the bad customers. Anybody on the line or the good area of that line which you have selected, if they are there, they become your good customers, and the rest become your bad customers. Is that clear? Have you understood what I'm trying to say?
Yes, ma'am.
So that is discriminate analysis. Okay. Now let's go to the next point. Traditionally, two methods have been commonly suggested for monitoring receivables. The next point is on control of accounts receivable. How do you monitor and control them? So there are two methods, that is days sales outstanding, aging schedule, and to overcome the weakness of traditional methods, a new method which is called as the collection matrix has been introduced. Okay, so I'll just quickly wind it up. In case of days sales outstanding, we basically use this formula to find how many days are still remaining for the customer to pay, or how much of sales are still outstanding that the customer had to pay within so and so period. So this is the formula that we will be using for days sales outstanding. We'll find the accounts receivable at time T. So if I give them maybe 9 months time, so sorry, 3 months time. So at the end of 3 months, how many customers are still to pay me, divided by what was my average daily sales. It will give me the days sales outstanding figure. So that days sales outstanding will tell me at time T, how many customers have to still pay money. So what is the amount that is outstanding still? So by that you can understand that how are you collecting it. Within 3 months, were you able to collect majority of the customers or you didn't? For this, I have a small example for which I'll prepare a separate video and I'll post it for you. That may not come in the exam, but to understand this particular theory, that small sum I will solve it for you. Once it had come in one of the question papers, so I'll solve it, so it will serve the purpose of solving the question paper also, plus you will understand the theory as well. So a separate video I'll post it for that. Next is the aging schedule. In case of aging schedule, what happens is you basically find out what percentage of your customers are under what age group when it comes to payment. So here I've drawn one schedule to show you how it is looking. The customers who will pay within 0 to 30 days are 35%. Customers who will take 31 to 60 days are 40%. Customers who will take 61 to 90 days are 20%, and customers who take more than 90 days are 5%. So this is how the aging schedule will look like, and it will tell you how are you performing while receiving money from your customers. So how are you controlling your customers? Here if we see, majority of it will be covered in 60 days, 40% plus 35%. 75% of the customers will pay you within 60 days. The remaining 25 will take beyond 60 days. So you can still improve. You can make 80-85% within 60 days. And if you see from 0 to 30 days, they are only 35%. You can improve that also. So the aging schedule guides you as to how are you collecting your money, in which age bracket people are paying you, and what percentage of people pay you in 30 days, in 60 days, 90 days. So it helps you to monitor better, and then you can also find which customer is always paying late, and next time maybe you can not give credit to that customer or give it credit to him with a warning that if he doesn't pay on time, you will give him less credit or no credit. So that is aging schedule. These are again both the traditional methods to control accounts receivable. The modern method is collection matrix. Now I will not read the collection matrix theory. Usually the traditional techniques, what they did is they aggregated. They found the average and found out how many days sales outstanding and how many percent of customers. Here aggregation won't happen, so it is a better method compared to them. So this is the example of the aging schedule. All of you just observe here I've written percentage of sales collected during the month of sale, during first month following sale, second month, third month and fourth month. So if I have sold goods in January, 13% of the customers will pay me in January only. 42% of the customers will pay me in February, 1 month after sales. 33% of the customers will pay me in March, and 12% of the customers will pay me in April. So this is how I'm going to collect my money. So same is with February, March, April, May and June. So these many are paying in the month of sale. These are paying very next month, then second month, third month and even up till fourth month. So what this table is trying to tell you is how well you have managed your collections. So if you see month of sale in January, February and March, most of the people paid. That means up to 15%. But April, May, June, the payment reduced. So you're not performing well in this count. First month also, if you see earlier it was more, but then May and June it has again reduced. So if you see for May and June, till fourth month also people are paying. So April, May, June, the performance has deteriorated. It has become worse because it has gone till the fourth month. That is in the first 3 months. In the third month, you could collect most of the amount. So the collection matrix shows you how the money is getting collected and how you can control. So this was the last slide. This was about the theory, credit management.